Good afternoon, internet fans. Ryan Perry here. Simple. Where am I going here? We're with the Digital Marketing Academy, aren't we, Sarah? Today
We're
is
actually with
week.
the Digital Mastermind Academies. You're over 2.
I know who I am and where I'm at, so it is a beautiful day. Digital Mastermind Academy, DMA. Today is week 3 of our SEO program. And I want to introduce you to my co-founder and cohort on the show, Sarah Giametti. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ryan, and everybody else. How are you guys doing today?
Hopefully everybody's doing good. I appreciate you keeping me straight, so I know what show I'm on and what we're talking about.
That's what I'm here for, is to keep you on the straight and narrow.
There you go. Behind every great man, there's, what is it, a wonderful woman, or there's something?
A strong woman? I don't know. The ones who rule it all.
Something good. This is our third show, as I stated. Today, we're going to kind of get into foundation stuff. In week 1, we really kind of just did an overview. Week 2, and when I say an overview, it's kind of like a broad overview: websites, social media, branding. Are you using the right tools, the right plugins, all of that type of information. We want to take the information that you got from week 1 and now implement, make sure that it is set up, make sure you've gone through that checklist and really built a solid foundation. It's interesting, I watched a video today that was actually from Google Webmaster, and it was how to hire a good SEO company. And I'm like, what a great video. Because one of the things that they said was that do not hire a company who's only worried about ranking. It needs to be, and I'm going to put it in my own words, kind of a holistic approach, that it's not just about ranking, it's also about making sure that your website is set up, that you have proper brand. All the other things that we're going to talk about today need to be a part of your SEO plan, because if you have great visibility, you have ranking on Google, but you've got terrible branding, your website isn't set up correctly, and everything else is hurting, you're pouring money into a pail with a lot of holes in it, and it doesn't make sense, especially from the client point of view.
Right. The first thing I look at when I am investigating a prospective client is their website. It's the foundation of everything that you're going to do online. If you don't have your website set up properly, like Ryan said, you're throwing money down the drain, or throwing it into the wind and letting it blow away for you, because it's not going to do you any good and you're just wasting it. And so that's why we focus on, in week 1, is going through your website, because that is the most important thing, is having that foundation proper. I mean, if you look at it like building a house, if your foundation is sketchy, your house is going to fall eventually. And so you don't want that. And so in this week's episode, week 1, we had you find all the problems that you need to fix. Week 2, we did the research. This week is really all about implementation and correcting all of those issues that you found, and implementing the research so that your SEO is actually working for you.
Yeah, and so speaking about week 1, some of the foundational stuff, let's actually start with the first slide, and that is going to be, make sure you fix any website issues. Your website, 99.9% of small business owners out there still need a website. I know there's talk about, oh, you can just have a Facebook page or yada, yada, yada. You really, as far as I'm concerned, you really should have a website. And your website is the foundation. And so some of the items that we really want to make sure that you have set up correctly is that your WordPress and all the plugins are up to date. You know more about WordFence, and I guess they actually have an update and they'll email you, or?
They do. I get weekly or daily emails from it telling me what issues there are. And so it'll even notify me if a plugin is out of date, because that can be a security risk if you don't update your plugins. So WordFence will email you notifications on whether or not you've got issues that you need to fix, so you can stay on top of it. And that's just in the free version. The paid version has way more functionality, But just to start off with, the free version is sufficient enough to stay up to date on your security issues, make sure your website is up to date and secure.
Okay, great. And then I want to just kind of blow through this because, again, this is all kind of a review from week one, but it is really important foundational information that you want to have done before you move on, because next week we're going to talk about implementing. How do we take everything that we've learned and actually start promoting and pushing and getting people to your website? So plugins up to date, WordPress up to date, menu structure. Is it easy for people to navigate your website? Identify and fix any broken links, otherwise known as 404 errors. Is your website mobile friendly? I think we've beat this up the last 3 weeks, but it's really important. Images are sized correctly and have an alt tag. Check permalink structure. These are some of the basics, and if some of this does not make sense to you, just go back to week one. There's a link down below that links back to the very first week where we cover all of this in depth.
And you'll want to, if you did follow week one at the time, this is the time to go through, because once you fix all these errors, you're going to implement the research part of it that you did in week two. So you want to go through and take that checklist that you, in week one, you went through all the steps we walked you through, create the list of all the things you need to fix. You want to fix them now. Just use it as an easy checklist. And we've got a free download coming that's going to have an easy checklist for you to walk through to make sure you've got everything up to date, and start here before you do any of the other stuff, and just make it an easy list that you check off one item at a time and focus at one item at a time. And the reason we didn't really push actual doing the implementation after week one is because, like, the permalink structure and the menu structure, your SEO research could affect what you do there. And so now is the time to combine the two, that your permalink structure, you want to make sure it's structured properly, but then you go into the title and making sure that title is SEO friendly. And so it kind of snowballs, which is why we're reiterating going back to fixing the issues now before you do any implementation.
Yeah, definitely. And part of that implementation is also going to be security. I think you're the one that found this little nugget of information that as of March 2016, so about a year ago, Google reports that over 50 million website users have been dealing with some sort of issues related to malicious software. And that's could be hacking, it could be a virus. There's a number of different things. I don't think I can count on the number of fingers, the number of people I personally know that have had some issues. So having something like WordFence installed, or it was WordFence, and there's also SiteLock, and then also just having an SSL certificate is really important.
Right. Security, we can't hammer home security enough. Since we both work in WordPress and we think it's the best solution for small businesses, you definitely need to make sure you have the security, because what the spammers, there's a lot of things they're trying to do, but one of the biggest things is they're trying to steal your server resources. And by being able to hack into your website, they can piggyback on that and spam people, and it'll negatively affect your URL too if you have it there for a while. I think I mentioned in a previous week, I've got a client where we're basically wasting time undoing the damage of what the hack did to his website and his rankings. That he is ranking for porn keywords, and that is not what he does for a living. So you really want to make sure your security is tight and it's implemented and monitored.
Yeah, and I had not a client, but it was a client of mine. The gal that was my point person went to another company, and she called, I think it was late last week. You type in their URL, and it was like a Chinese news outlet page popped up, all in Chinese with videos and text and weird stuff. Very, very strange. So security is very, very important, and it is part of that foundation that you need to have in place. Because if you do all this great work and you start driving people to your website, and then all of a sudden you get hit, now you're driving people, and that's going to affect brand and imaging, which is not good. The other thing that you need when you drive people to your website is going to be some sort of tracking information. Google Analytics and Google Search Console are two of the items that we talk about in week 1 that you need to have set up. Also, make sure that you have a sitemap set up and you've uploaded that sitemap to Search Console. Again, I don't think we need to beat this to death because it's all covered in week 1. And one of the things I do want to talk about is Hotjar, and this is a really cool thing. Let me exit out of this, and I want to show you Hotjar. This is really cool. This is what's called a heat map. And again, if you want to track and understand what people are doing, Google Analytics helps. The reason why I like Hotjar or a heat map is that Google Analytics is all numbers. It's zeros and ones. You're looking at spreadsheets. This is a visual representation, and essentially the more red something gets, the hotter it is. That means there's been more clicks to it. And so you can kind of get a visual representation of where people are actually clicking on. And if you find something like, oh, here's an image that they're clicking on, you may want to go back to your website and go, is this a clickable image? If people feel that it should be, this will show you that people are clicking on it, so you can actually fix some issues within your website also. The other thing that Hotjar does that other heat map software doesn't do is it'll actually record users. So this is an actual recording of a person, and it gives you an idea, a visual representation of how people are actually viewing your website. And this is really cool because you get an idea of where they're clicking, how they're visualizing, how they're seeing your website. And if they're looking at it on a smartphone, as an example, then the screen shows up as a smartphone. If they're looking at it in tablet, it shows up in tablet. So you can get an idea of what the user's actually looking at and how they're scrolling, depending on if it's desktop, tablet, or smartphone.
And the beauty of having something like this is also it tells you not only what's working, but what's not working. And so it could tell you what to eliminate from your website if need be. But it also could tell you, for instance, if you've got a specific video or blog article that a lot of people are responding to and it's working really well, that can direct you to create additional content similar to that content and link them together so that you can help them choose where to navigate to relevant content that they would like that's similar to what they are already liking. So this will help you not only fine tune your content and what you're creating, but help you direct them in the way that you want them to go.
Yeah, and I love that. As far as a lot of times, especially with small business owners, I fight with them because they feel they have to put everything like on the homepage, even though they get 80% of their business from one specific service. And a lot of times when you add a lot of junk in there, it creates clutter and confusion. And when people get confused, they turn off. The brain just literally turns off. So I love that comment of removing stuff. If people are not clicking on it, it's not adding any value. So let's actually remove it. Love that. Love that. Go ahead.
No, nothing. Go
okay.
For it.
Next one is going to be site optimization. One of the plugins that you're going to want to use that we talk about in week 1 is SEO by Yoast. That is going to optimize. It's going to check the setup program of WordPress to make sure that it's actually set up to be visible by Google. Plus, it's going to help you with title tags, description tags, and those type of things on the different pages. And this is where your week 2 research comes in. That was the keyword research. And you want to make sure that now as you're building that foundation, are you using the right keywords on your primary pages? As you start building out your blog, are you using the different variations of the keyword? Teeth whitening, we use dentist a lot or at least I use dentist a lot as an examples. With dentist, you have teeth whitening as an example. There are hundreds of different ways that people actually search for teeth whitening. how to whiten teeth, best product to use teeth whitening. Should I go to a dentist to whiten my teeth? What is teeth whitening? How often should I whiten my teeth? By doing keyword research, you find all these different long tail keywords, and now you can start implementing that into a plan that we'll talk about next week when we talk about actually rolling this out and promoting your website and blog.
Right. And the beauty with Yoast is, keep in mind that Google ranks individual web pages. They do not rank a website as a whole. And although your website as a whole is a factor in some of your things like domain authority, but when it really comes down to it, it ranks one page at a time for one keyword phrase. And so the beauty of Yoast is it gives you a stoplight, like Ryan just brought up, and it shows you with all these different points, if you are red, orange, yellow, or green. And you want to, obviously the goal is to get 100% green, but sometimes it's software. It's not always a perfect science. I mean, I've had it pop up saying your focus keyword is not in the first sentence, and it's the first 4 words of the sentence. But if you can get as much of this green as possible, then that is a great accomplishment. And you do it page by page, and Yoast makes it really visual and easy for you to know how well you've done your implementation for that one individual page. And you've got the spreadsheet that you did with your research last week. And just if you've got it in a spreadsheet, either in Excel or Google Docs, you can just highlight it that you used it. Have a column saying what page it's on, so you know you've used that keyword phrase, so you're not using the same one on multiple pages, because you do want to keep it a single topic per page. Think back when you were in high school and college and you wrote an essay. It was a one topic essay. And so you want to use that carryover, use that thought process and carry it over into your website, that you have a single topic for a single page. So you've got one service. If you have 5 services, you should have 5 pages on your website, one for each service, and then optimize it for that particular keyword phrase.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next thing we want to talk about is local. For the Digital Mastermind Academy, we're really focused on small local business, and therefore local search becomes very, very important. And are you set up for local search? Some of the things that we talk about, let me get my screen share going here real quick, is Google. That is the #1 place you need to check. I'm a huge fan of Google My Business, because if you want to be found in Google, one of the easiest ways to get your business name, URL, phone number into Google is going to be through Google My Business. Apple Maps, Yelp, Bing, Yahoo, Yellow Pages, Foursquare, City Search. We talk about all this in week 1, but you want to go back and claim these. Some of these should be personally claimed. That means you go out and you actually go to Google My Business and claim it. You have a username and password. There's other ones that you can use, Moz Local, what is there, City Search, not City Search, White Spark. There's a gazillion other ones, but I think Moz is one of the better tools, and it's a really good price.
Yeah, it's like $85 a year for Moz Local, so that's a really good one. One thing with Google My Business that, and this has come out before, but they just came out again the last day or two stronger, that they're really pushing back against virtual locations. And so that would be like a mail service location or a PO box. That for Google My Business, for local business, they really want to have a real local address. And so if you are a service business that you're out of your house, and I get it, you don't really want your house address on there, you need a real address. And it can't be one of those mail service places. Maybe it can't be like a mailbox with a faux real address. We've got a couple of those around here. You might want to find one that's kind of a co-working space that does mail services, that you can have a real physical address to put your business at, so that you can claim the Google My Business and not have your listing suspended.
Yeah, and like you said, that's something that recently Google is starting to crack down on again. So you want to pay attention to that. You may not be hurt by that now, but if you are hurt in a month, 2 months, 6 months, again, this is all about creating a solid foundation. We don't want to build something up and make it really strong, only to have it torn down in the future. Let's talk about social media accounts. There are some social media accounts that you should have. These are accounts that you should claim. These are accounts that you should have your URL in, even if you don't use them. Just because you have them doesn't mean you have to promote them, but it is a pretty smart idea to have a Facebook business page, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, Snapchat, and this is all from an SEO point of view. So again, I will iterate that you don't necessarily have to use all of these accounts. However, if you're not going to use them, please don't promote them. I always love it on when people have websites and they've got their social media links at the top. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm a YouTube guy. I love YouTube. So I click on it and they've got one video from 5 years ago and nothing's been optimized. It's not branded. And I'm just like, oh, okay, instant turn off.
Or no, even better than that is they have the Facebook and Twitter links and it just goes to facebook.com.
Okay, I haven't seen that one before, but I can understand that. I can understand why that might be why it might happen.
It might be a problem. Yeah, for the SEO purpose, because it's another link back to your website. When you fill out the about section, you can put your website URL in there and your phone number. And even if you are not going to use them, like I'll use myself as an example because I am so online. I was trying to find a business and I did Google. And their website wouldn't load. I went to Facebook trying to find them on Facebook. And from there, to get the information like hours and phone number and website. And so people are searching first on all these different locations. And so you want to make sure at least the basic information is filled out in the profile. So like we said, you don't have to have a social media plan right now. And you definitely don't need to have it on all of them, but definitely make sure your information is correct and accurate across all the different platforms. So you've got the SEO extra juice of a link back to your website from a high authority website, but also you're making it easier for prospective customers to find you if that's the location they are looking for you in first.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's talk about how do we do all this? I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff. A lot of this may be beyond the level of a lot of people. I know a lot of people, and it gets very technical, techie. We kind of shut down because it's over our head. And the reality is, if you're on a tight budget, you may not be able to afford the services of an SEO company that's going to check this, or maybe you're inquiring with an SEO company and they're going, oh yeah, well, in order to get your foundation set, we need to do this, 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 and this, and it's going to cost $1 bazillion that you don't have. Using the checklist that we have for you, including this, that PDF, the course sheet that I've been showing you, you can actually download that. There's a link down there. So you have all the different tools, have links to where you can go to get SEO Yoast plugin as an example. But if you're not familiar with it, there are other sources where you can outsource. And I use Fiverr, Fiverr.com quite a bit, and Upwork.com quite a bit to actually get work done. I mean, pretty much you can get SEO work done, although very questionable. You really want to qualify somebody, especially on Fiverr, for SEO work. But if you need plugins installed, you need to make updates to your WordPress website, you need help setting up your Google Analytics or anything like that, you can get it done online really inexpensively. And I know, Sarah, both of us use quite a bit of people from a couple of different websites.
Right. I use Upwork a lot to find somebody for my employees and subcontractors. Because you can vet them really easily through Upwork, and other people have already vetted them too. You can look and see what their job history was, what their reviews are, how responsive are they, things like that. So they're kind of pre-vetted, and so it's easy for me anyway to find quality employees that way. Or one-off jobs, like just now, Ryan and I were chatting about something that we need to have done, and a guy can just throw it up on Upwork and find somebody, and you can choose price point, you can choose location if you want to stick within the United States or you don't care. But you definitely want to make sure you vet them if you're going to use this. I haven't used Fiverr very much. I've used them for a few one-off graphic design stuff. I know Ryan's used it a lot more than I have. But you definitely want to, if you want to go this route and you've got limited budget, is be very careful about who you pick and take your time and be discerning before you hire somebody. And if you have the opportunity to do so, hire them for something little to try them out and see how it is before you give them the keys to the castle.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the key things that you pointed out is find somebody who has jobs. So one of the cool things on all of these sites, it'll let you know how many jobs they've done, how many, what the reviews. So typically it's 100%. How many people are 100% happy? Oh, they got a 90% happy rating. That's pretty good. Most of them you can actually read reviews, just like Yelp. Oh yeah, this guy did X, Y, and Z. And I look for consistency. I was looking for somebody the other day, and they had really good, I want to say they're probably like around 90% customer satisfaction. And then going through the reviews, I saw a number of issues where they didn't deliver on time. And that was a red flag for me. I don't have patience for that. So I skipped past that person. I found somebody else. The other thing is going to be OHOW. If you want to get your Google Analytics set up correctly, unfortunately, the good old days of just putting the code on your website are kind of over, because there's a lot of spam around Google Analytics that will actually affect your numbers in a negative way. You're not going to get real information. I recommend using OHOW. Guys got a very reasonable price, goes in, cleans everything up for you. And again, you can just download our PDF. It has links to everything that we've talked about on this one. And I think, the other thing I wanted to mention that you mentioned is location. So I think a lot of people get a little fearful about outsourcing. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to work with somebody in another country. May it be communication? May it be, I want to work with a US based person. Totally understand. You can actually select that you just want to work with US based businesses. And I'll give you a little pro tip. What I like to do is I like to find people Midwest and I'll even go up into Canada. If I need somebody where English is really, really important to me, typically writing, I like to find them in the Midwest corridor, simply because the cost of living is less expensive. And therefore their pricing typically is a little bit less expensive versus hiring somebody out of New York or San Francisco. You're typically going to get a different type of person, but that's part of the game of finding the right people for you. And since they're all 1099s, if they don't do the work that you want, you don't have to go through the worries and process of firing them or anything like that. You just simply don't renew them. You go out and find someone else.
And the advantage with using something like Upwork also as a small business owner is Upwork takes care of the 1099. So you don't have to worry about issuing 1099s at tax time for all of them, because technically you are paying Upwork and Upwork is paying them. So you don't have to worry about that part of it at all. And so that makes it also another advantage of using a system like that. If you are looking for, and this is especially if you're really limited budget, you're looking for a single person to help you get some stuff done. It's a great avenue. And same, I agree with Ryan. I've used a bunch of people out of the Midwest. Most of my people come out of the Midwest. And that's just because at least for the two of us who are in California, I would love to hire somebody locally, but they have to live here too. And I know what it takes to live here. And so for running a business, cost is definitely a factor in expenses. And so Upwork is a great opportunity for finding quality people for a reasonable fee. And we're not talking minimum wage. You will not get quality for minimum wage in the internet marketing world. So let's set that standard right away, that I typically am paying 15 to 20 an hour minimum for quality work for any of the pieces of internet marketing.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable rate, across the board. And sometimes you may end up paying a little bit more depending on what the situation is. That is all that we have for this week. Basically, we really wanted to recap week one, make sure you've got everything nailed down. And next week, week 4, is where all the fun's going to happen. This is where we're going to take all the information and we're going to show you how to promote and push out your information so that you can start drawing new visitors to your website.
So your homework for this week is to go back to your notes from weeks 1 and week 2 and from this week, and once you've done the site analysis, once you've done the keyword research, now go through and check it all off and make sure it all gets implemented. Find some help for what you need to do to make sure it all gets done. You want to have your foundation totally perfect, ship shape, no cracks in it, because if there's a crack in your foundation, something will find it and it'll all crumble. So that's your homework for this week, is to make sure all the little check mark boxes that you've got from the last 2 weeks and from today are all taken care of before you start doing the promotion, so that you've got a solid foundation to work off of. And trust us that you will not regret putting the time and effort into making it solid and sturdy. Because down the road, you don't want it to cost you 10 times more money to undo and unravel and fix something. Like the client I had, they did not put security on their website, and we're now wasting time and money, in my opinion, undoing the damage that could have been prevented if this foundation had been done properly from day one. You're muted. Let's get it.
I know. No, sorry. Yeah, I figured out I had another screen up, and so it wouldn't let me. I'm like clicking the unmute button. What I wanted to say was that is it for today's show. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about promoting all of your content. And Sarah, I'll let you sign off today.
Thanks for checking. See, now I'm screwing up. Thanks for tuning in to this week. We really hope you tune in next week and you're finding this useful information, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 2 o'clock.